This couple has been married for 20 years and are still in love in order to keep his wife from getting old. The husband is willing to spend $100,000 a month just to hire a beautiful nanny to serve her. But that day, the happy woman found a bracelet on her husband's desk that didn't belong to her. At first, she comforted herself with the thought that it must have been left behind by a friend. However, from that day on, she realized that her husband was always making phone calls behind her back, and every time, he would show an ambiguous smile on his face. She couldn't help but question her husband, but he denied her suspicions and asked her if she hadn't taken her depression pills. It turned out that the woman had postpartum depression since her second child and usually liked to think about things. The woman calmed down instantly and had no real evidence in hand, so she stopped and made up with him. However, the next day at work during the lunch break she wanted to call her husband to make a dinner date, but the other party did not answer for an hour. Until her husband's assistant said that he had been out for a long time. She instantly had a bad feeling and rushed to take a taxi to her husband's usual restaurant, only to find that he and his female secretary walked out together, both talking and laughing, and her husband, who seldom opened the door for her, helped her. Even the next week the woman found the two together. At this moment she was finally sure that her husband had betrayed her. She felt extremely painful but did not dare to confront her husband. Luckily, the nanny of the house comforted her and encouraged her to talk to the secretary, but when the secretary found out, she insisted that she had nothing to do with her husband and that the only reason she was riding in his car was because she was on her way to a Pilates class. As for the bracelet, I don't have that kind of taste. Seeing that she was not lying, the woman was a bit confused. But then her husband happened to pass by and witnessed everything and angrily accused her of being ridiculous. But how do you explain the bracelet? The husband confessed that he didn't know who it belonged to after all. There were so many people in his company that he might have brought it back by mistake. As for why he was out of touch for an hour every day, it was because he had gone to a photographer to design a picture for him and the children as a memento of moving to Australia. When she found out that her husband was doing it for the sake of his family, the woman realized how wrong she was. So she apologized and started to take the depression pills her husband bought every day, and went to work at his brother's company at his own behest. However, the woman could not have imagined that the medication she was taking had suddenly been replaced by another one a day earlier, and every day after her husband sent her to work. Not only did he not go to the office, but also returned home because he wanted to have an exciting private meeting with a woman who was the family's nanny. It turns out that as early as 6 months ago, the two began a relationship and even brought her with him to Australia to settle down, ostensibly to comfort his wife for the sake of her and the two children. But in fact, the nanny liked it here. In order to see her every day, the man let her into his home as a nanny. So the nanny, when she learned that the woman suspected her husband, she immediately tipped him off and cooperated with the photos to cope with the suspicion. However, it is never enough to cover the fire. This day when his wife is not at home cannot help but sneak to find the nanny to go to the basement to completely forget to take care of the newborn son a few months ago.